I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room when my phone rang. The chairs were those cheap green plastic ones that curve just enough to make your back ache. A daytime talk show buzzed softly from a TV mounted too high on the wall. Someone nearby coughed into a tissue. Another woman flipped through a magazine that was at least 5 years old. It was boring, ordinary, that's why I almost ignored the call. Then I saw the name on the screen. Angela, my daughter. My only child. I smiled automatically. That muscle memory never goes away, no matter how old your child gets. Hey, sweetheart, I said, warm and familiar. There was no greeting on the other end. No hi, Mom, no laugh. No warmth. Her voice sounded tight, controlled, almost distant. Mom, she said, we're going on a trip to Europe tomorrow. I blinked. Tomorrow? I asked. That's sudden. There was a short pause, like she was choosing her words carefully. I already sold your beach house, she continued. And your car. We needed the money. For a moment, my brain refused to catch up. I'm sorry, I said slowly. You did what? We needed the money, she repeated, sharper now. Edward has a big opportunity over there. This was the fastest way. My chest tightened like someone had wrapped a belt around it and pulled. You sold my house, I whispered. And Robert's truck. Yes, Mom, she said, annoyed. I didn't think you'd make this so dramatic. Dramatic. That word hit harder than the rest. Angela, I said, my voice trembling despite my effort. You can't just. I already did, she cut in. Then she said the words that changed everything. Bye. The call ended. I sat there with my phone still pressed to my ear. The room didn't stop. A nurse called a patient's name. The TV audience laughed at a joke. Someone's phone chimed nearby. And I realized something terrifying. No one noticed. My life had just been flipped upside down and the world didn't even blink. I lowered my phone slowly and stared at my reflection in the dark screen. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I didn't feel dizzy or weak. Instead, I felt calm, too calm, the kind of calm that only comes when something deep inside you has quietly decided this is the moment everything changes. My name is Antonia Brooks. I'm 71 years old, and until that phone call, I thought I knew my daughter. 6 months earlier, I became a widow. My husband, Robert, died right in front of me. We were sitting at the kitchen table just like we had every morning for 45 years. Coffee with cream, toast, morning light spilling through the window. He kissed my forehead and smiled. Good morning, my love. Those were his last words. One moment he was there, the next he wasn't. The doctors said it was quick, a heart attack, no suffering, but for me, it felt like the world cracked open and swallowed half of me whole. After the funeral, everything blurred together. The casseroles, the sympathy cards, the quiet nights when the house felt too big. Angela stepped in quickly, or at least I thought she did. She started coming over 3 times a week. She helped with paperwork, drove me to the grocery store, sat beside me at the bank while I signed forms I barely understood. Mom, you need to take better care of yourself now, she'd say, squeezing my hand. You're alone. At the time, I thought it was love. Now I see it differently. The beach house, that was our sanctuary. Robert and I bought it when Angela was 15. We worked overtime, skipped vacations, pinched pennies. Every summer we went there, every Christmas, every birthday. Angela learned to swim in that water. Robert grilled fish on the porch while I made salads inside. Angela brought friends, then boyfriends, then Edward. I cooked for everyone, cleaned for everyone, smiled through it all. I never complained. That house wasn't just property, it was memory, and she sold it like it was nothing. And the truck of Robert's old Ford pickup. He loved that thing like family, washed it every Sunday, changed the oil religiously, parked it under the same tree every time. After he died, I'd sometimes sit in the driver's seat just to smell him. Angela knew that. She sold it anyway. The nurse finally called my name. Mrs. Brooks. I stood up slowly. My legs were steady, too steady. The doctor examined me, listened to my heart, checked my blood pressure. You're in good health for your age, he said. Just need more rest. I nodded and smiled politely, if only he knew. On the bus ride home, I sat by the window and watched the city go by. People rushing, stores opening and closing, life moving forward, everyone carrying secrets. I had one too, one I'd forgotten. 3 days before Robert died, he handed me an envelope. Plain manila, nothing special. Put this in your dresser drawer, he said. If something happens to me, open it later, not right away. When you're ready, I nodded and did exactly that. After the funeral, with all the grief and confusion, I forgot it existed. Until now, when I got home, I didn't even take off my coat. I went straight to the bedroom. Opened the dresser drawer. There it was, exactly where I'd left it. My name written neatly on the front in Robert's handwriting. My hands trembled as I sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time since that phone call, I felt something, not fear. Not sadness, anticipation. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside were documents, legal papers, deeds, bank statements, and a handwritten letter, Robert's handwriting. My heart started pounding. Before I read a single word, one thought crossed my mind. My daughter thinks she took everything from me, and for the first time since she hung up, I smiled. I sat on the edge of the bed with the envelope resting in my hands. The house was quiet in that deep, hollow way only widows understand. No footsteps, no radio playing in the background, no Robert clearing his throat from the living room. Just silence, the kind that presses against your ears. I took a slow breath and unfolded the letter inside. Robert's handwriting stared back at me, neat, careful, familiar. My eyes blurred instantly. My dear Antonia, if you're reading this, then I'm no longer there to bring you coffee in the morning. A tear slipped down my cheek. He always knew how to say the hardest things gently. I didn't tell you everything while I was alive, not because I didn't trust you, but because I wanted to protect you. I paused. Protect me from what? Over the years, I invested what we saved, quietly, carefully. I never took risks that could hurt us. My heart began to pound. We don't just own the beach house, Antonia, I swallowed. We own 6 other properties. I stopped breathing. Including the apartment building where Angela and Edward live. The room tilted. Everything is held under a company I created years ago. You are the sole beneficiary. My hands shook as I reached for the next page. There are also bank accounts and investments you don't know about, enough that you will never have to worry about money. Never have to worry about money. I let the letter fall into my lap. For a long moment, I just sat there staring at the wall. Robert, my quiet, simple Robert, a bus driver for 40 years, the man who wore the same jacket for a decade and complained when eggs went up $1. And all this time, he had been building an empire in silence. I went through the documents slowly. Property deeds, company papers, bank statements, numbers I had never seen before. There it was in black and white, the truth. The building Angela lived in, mine. The condo downtown, mine. The small motel on the coast, mine. Savings accounts with balances that made my chest tight, mine. And suddenly, the phone call from earlier that day replayed in my head. We needed the money, we sold your house. Bye, I laughed, not loudly, not hysterically, just a soft, disbelieving laugh. My daughter thought she'd wiped me out. She thought she'd left me helpless. She thought she'd taken my last safety net. She had no idea. That night I didn't sleep. I walked through the house, touching the furniture, the couch Robert used to nap on, the lamp Angela once broke and we glued back together, the dining table where we'd eaten thousands of meals. Angela had criticized everything in this house, too old, too outdated, too small, and yet she'd lived off it her entire life. Around 6 a.m. my phone rang, Angela again. I answered calmly. Hello, Mom, she said, suddenly sweet. I just wanted to check on you. I almost laughed again. I transferred your share of the money, she continued. It's not much, but it should last you a few months. My share, I asked quietly. Yes, we gave you 30%. That's fair, right? 30% of my own life, of my own memories. I could hear Edward in the background talking loudly, laughing. They were packing, excited, free. When are you leaving? I asked. Today, we'll be gone at least 6 months. Have a safe trip, I said. Oh, Mom, she replied warmly. I knew you'd understand. You always do. She hung up. I stood in the kitchen holding the phone, and for the first time since Robert died, I laughed out loud. I checked my bank account. The deposit was there. An amount that probably looked generous to them. To me, it was insulting. They'd sold the beach house fast, too fast, which meant they'd sold it cheap. They'd sold Robert's truck for almost nothing. They hadn't even tried to hide it. That afternoon, I watched from the window as Angela and Edward loaded their suitcases into a cab, 2 oversized bags, 1 designer carry-on, laughing, making plans. They never looked up at my window, not once. The cab drove away. I went back to the kitchen, spread Robert's documents across the table, and made a decision. I could call the police, I could sue, I could have everything reversed in days, but something inside me whispered, there's a better way. I called Mr. Peterson, Robert's lawyer. Mrs. Brooks, he said warmly, how are you holding up? I need your help, I said calmly. I found something Robert left me. There was a pause. I was hoping you would. The next morning, I put on my wine-colored dress, the one Robert loved, fixed my hair, and looked in the mirror. I didn't see a widow. I saw a woman who had been underestimated her entire life, and my daughter. She was about to learn the most expensive lesson of her life. I arrived at Mr. Peterson's office 10 minutes early, not because I was nervous, because for the first time in months, I felt awake. His office sat in an old downtown building with marble floors worn smooth by decades of footsteps. The kind of place that smelled faintly of leather, paper, and quiet authority. The receptionist smiled gently when she saw me. Mrs. Brooks, he's expecting you. Of course he was. Robert always planned ahead. Mr. Peterson stood when I entered, gray hair, calm eyes, the kind of man who never rushed his words because he didn't need to. I'm sorry for your loss, he said again, sincerely. Thank you, I replied. I think Robert knew this day would come. He nodded and gestured for me to sit. You found the envelope. Yes, he exhaled slowly. Your husband was a very careful man. I laid the documents on his desk. He didn't look surprised. That told me everything. How much does my daughter know? I asked. Nothing, he said firmly. Robert was very clear about that. Good. Mr. Peterson leaned forward. Mrs. Brooks, everything here is valid. The company, the properties, the accounts, all legally yours. And the beach house? I asked quietly. He sighed. That sale was illegal. Your daughter had no authority. So I can get it back. Yes, immediately. I nodded. And the truck, that will take longer. She had a power of attorney. I frowned. A power of attorney? Yes, dated 3 months after your husband passed. My chest tightened. I remembered now. Angela had brought papers. Said they were just formalities. Said I didn't need to read them. Said she'd handle everything. I trusted her, I whispered. Mr. Peterson didn't interrupt. That was my mistake, I said calmly. No, he replied. That was her test. And she failed it, I sat back. I don't want her arrested. He raised an eyebrow. I don't want drama, I continued. I want order, he smiled slightly. I had a feeling you'd say that. Then I told him my plan, every detail. I want the beach house back quietly, I said. No confrontation, no calls. That's easy. I want control of all properties finalized under my name, already in motion, and I want her to keep believing I'm broke. Mr. Peterson paused. Are you sure? Yes. Why? I looked him straight in the eye. Because money didn't ruin my daughter. Entitlement did. He leaned back. That's a dangerous lesson. So is stealing from your own mother. For the next 3 weeks, I lived 2 lives. To the world, I was a poor widow. Neighbors brought casseroles. The grocery clerk spoke to me slowly. People asked if I was managing okay. I smiled, said yes. Behind closed doors, I was reclaiming everything. The beach house came back first. The buyers were furious until they learned the truth. They got their money back. I got my memories back, quietly. Then the company transfers finalized. Robert Investments, Inc., sole owner, Antonia Brooks. I held the paperwork in my hands and felt something shift inside me. Not joy, not anger, control. I drove to the beach house one afternoon, sat across the street, watched the waves. An older man stepped out, one of the buyers. You knew the original owners? He asked. Yes, I said. Very well, he shook his head. They told us the mother was sick, that she needed to sell fast. I smiled thinly. My daughter lies beautifully. That night I called Mr. Peterson again. I want the building, I said, the one Angela lives in. He inhaled sharply. That will hurt. She didn't hesitate when she hurt me. By the 4th week, Edward's name started appearing in reports. Loans, debt, bad investments, everything tied to the apartment, everything unsecured, everything about to collapse. And Angela, Europe wasn't going well. I knew because Aurora told me. She called crying, Aurora said. Said Edward's business wasn't what he promised. I nodded. The lie was cracking. Then came the call. Mom, Angela said, her voice shaking. Edward's in trouble with the bank. I kept my tone soft. Oh, they're saying we owe more than we thought. I'm sorry, honey. She paused. Are you okay? I smiled. I'm fine. She didn't know it yet, but the ground under her feet, it was already moving. The call came at 6:12 a.m. That alone told me something was wrong. Angela never called that early unless she was panicking. Mom, she said, breathless, we have a problem. I didn't rush. I let silence do the heavy lifting. What kind of problem? I asked calmly. Edward's voice echoed faintly in the background, sharp, frantic. The bank froze our account, she said. They're saying we owe money we don't have. I sipped my tea. I thought Europe was going great, she hesitated. It was supposed to. 2 days later, Edward vanished, just like that. No goodbye, no explanation, one suitcase missing, her credit card maxed out. And a hotel manager in Paris calling about unpaid charges. Angela flew back alone. Aurora saw her first. She looked wrecked, Aurora told me. One suitcase, no makeup, crying on the steps. I nodded. Phase 2 had begun. The eviction notice went out that afternoon. 30 days, clean, legal, unemotional, no signature from me, just the company name. Angela called within the hour. Mom, she said, her voice shaking, I got this letter. What letter? An eviction notice. Oh, I said softly. That's awful, you don't understand, she cried. I don't have anywhere to go. I closed my eyes. Yes, I thought, now you do. She showed up at my door that evening. No suitcase, no confidence, just fear. Can I come in? She whispered. I stepped aside, of course. She sat at the kitchen table, the same one she once told me to replace because it looked old. Now she clutched it like a lifeline. I'm so sorry, she said. I didn't interrupt. I was awful to you, still silent. I thought I knew better. I poured her tea. I don't know what to do, she cried. Edward's gone. The debts are mine. I lost everything. I met her eyes. No, I said calmly. You lost the illusion. That night she slept in her childhood bedroom, and for the first time in years I locked my own door, not out of fear, but out of boundaries. The next morning I called Mr. Peterson. She's back, I said. Good, he replied, then it's time. Angela spent the week applying for jobs, any jobs, retail cleaning, office night shifts, rejections piled up, credit checks failed her. Her confidence crumbled. One night she came home exhausted. I got a cleaning job, she said quietly. Nights, I nodded. That's honest work, she flinched. I knew she heard the truth in it. Then came the envelope. The second one, Robert's handwriting. The safety deposit key. Angela stared at it like it was salvation. Dad left this for us, she whispered. For you, I corrected gently. At the bank, the jewels glittered under cold fluorescent light. Her breath caught. Mom, this is a fortune. I tilted my head. Is it? She sold them, every piece, to pay Edward's debts, to fix her mess. And when the money still wasn't enough, she finally understood something. She cried that night, not loudly, just quietly. The kind of crying that comes when pride finally dies. I ruined everything, she whispered. I sat beside her. No, I said softly, you learned. The lawyer meeting came 2 weeks later. The truth landed like thunder, the properties, the accounts. The building, my control, my silence. Why? She asked, tears streaming. Why didn't you help me sooner? I looked at her. Because if I had, you'd still be the same person. She didn't speak for a long time, then she nodded. I get it now. Edward was arrested in France. Fraud, fake marriage, deportation pending. Angela felt nothing. That told me everything. 6 months later, she was still working, still paying her share, still rebuilding, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. One evening, she said something I'll never forget. Mom, thank you for not saving me. I smiled. You saved yourself. The first real change didn't come with money. It came with silence, not the awkward kind, not the heavy kind, but the peaceful kind that settles in when chaos finally packs its bags and leaves. Angela stopped crying at night. She stopped pacing the house like someone waiting for bad news. She stopped checking her phone every 5 minutes, hoping Edward would suddenly explain everything and make it all make sense. Instead, she started waking up early, quietly. Without complaints, one morning I noticed something small, but telling. She made her bed perfectly, not rushed, not sloppy, tight corners, straight pillows. The way I used to do it when Robert and I first married, that's when I knew. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was rebuilding. Her cleaning job became routine. She left at 9:30 p.m., came back around 3 o'clock. I'm exhausted, but different, not defeated, grounded. One night she came home with sore hands and tired eyes and said, "You know what's weird, Mom? What? I sleep better now than I did in Europe." I looked at her. She smiled weakly. Turns out lying to yourself is exhausting. Edward tried calling once, then twice, then many times. Angela didn't answer, not because she was scared, but because she was done. One afternoon, she came home holding a thin envelope. No tears, no shaking, just calm. "It's from France," she said. "Edward," she nodded. "What does it say?" She placed it on the table, unopened. "I don't care." That told me everything. But the world wasn't done testing her yet. It never is. 2 weeks later, the bank letters arrived. Again, different envelopes, different tone, more official. Angela sat at the table reading them, her face tightening. "They're reopening the investigation," she said. "They think I knew." I leaned back. "Do you know?" she snapped, then caught herself. "No, but they don't know that." I nodded. "Then it's time." She looked at me. "Time for what?" "To stop surviving quietly." I called Mr. Peterson. Now, not later, not eventually. Now the meeting was set for Friday morning. Angela barely slept the night before, not because she was afraid, but because this time she was going to face things standing up. At the lawyer's office, she sat straight, chin lifted, hands steady. Mr. Peterson slid the folder across the desk. "Miss Brooks," he said, "we've completed the investigation." Angela swallowed. "Am I responsible?" He smiled. No, her shoulders dropped, but she didn't cry, not anymore. He explained everything. Edward's forged signatures, the false loans, the fraud trail, the fake marriage attempt, the criminal charges. Her name was clean, legally, completely. She stared at the documents. "I almost destroyed my life for a man who didn't even exist," she said quietly. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "No," I corrected. "You destroyed an illusion." Outside, she took a deep breath. "The kind you take when you've been underwater too long." "I want to keep my job," she said suddenly. Mr. Peterson blinked. I smiled. "I need to finish this chapter properly," Angela continued. "I can't just walk away like nothing happened." I nodded. "That's called integrity. But life doesn't reward growth immediately. Sometimes it tests it." 3 days later, a reporter called. Someone leaked the story. Edward's arrest, the fraud. The apartment building and my name. "Mrs. Brooks," the voice said, "we'd like to ask about your daughter's involvement." I paused, then answered calmly. "My daughter was a victim. And you?" "I'm a mother." The article ran anyway, twisted. "Sensational." Angela saw it online. Her hands shook. "They think I'm a criminal." I turned off the screen. "They think what sells." The neighbors started whispering. Some avoided eye contact. Others suddenly smiled too much. Aurora came by furious. "How dare they?" she said. "They don't know anything." Angela stood quietly, then said something that surprised me. "Let them talk." I raised an eyebrow. She smiled faintly. "I used to live for other people's approval. I'm done with that." That night she came home late, but not from work, from somewhere else. "I signed up for night classes," she said. "Social work." I blinked. "You're serious?" "Yes." She looked nervous. "But for the first time, it's my choice." Weeks passed, steady, quiet, healing. Then came the call that changed everything. Mr. Peterson again. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, "Edward has been sentenced." Angela froze. "How long?" "2 years." She nodded once. Good. Not relief, not anger, closure. That night she cried, but softly, into her pillow, grieving the woman she used to be. One morning, months later, she stood in the doorway holding coffee. Mom, yes, thank you for letting me fall, I smiled. That's how we learn to stand. But the story wasn't done because healing isn't the end, purpose is. The first time Angela stood up publicly, it wasn't dramatic. No speech, no tears, no confrontation, just a quiet decision. She went to work like always, put on her cleaning uniform, tied her hair back, and walked into that office building like she belonged there, because now she did. When people whispered about her past, she didn't explain. When someone hinted about that scandal, she didn't defend herself. She worked, she listened, she learned. And slowly something shifted. People stopped seeing her as the woman with the mess. They started seeing her as the woman who shows up. One night she came home later than usual, not exhausted, not defeated, but energized. You won't believe this, she said, dropping her bag by the door. What? Mrs. Johnson asked me to train the new hires. I smiled. That's trust, she nodded. I didn't realize how much it meant until now. The past still tried to follow her. It always does. One afternoon, an unfamiliar car parked across the street. A man stepped out, suit, clipboard, serious face. Angela froze at the window. Mom, there's someone outside. I looked. I know, you do? Yes, it was time. The man introduced himself politely. I'm here regarding Robert Investments, Inc. Angela's face drained of color. I thought this was over. I placed a hand on her shoulder. It is. But not in the way you think. We sat at the table, the same table where she once cried over debt letters. The man opened his folder. Miss Brooks, he said calmly, you are no longer a tenant. Angela swallowed. I know. I'm leaving soon, he shook his head. No, you misunderstand. He slid a document forward. You are now a resident representative. She stared. What does that mean? It means you'll help oversee tenant support services for the building. Silence. Then you own the building? She whispered, looking at me. I didn't answer immediately. I let the moment breathe. Yes, I said finally. She stood up, not angry, not shocked, just overwhelmed. You knew the whole time, she said quietly. Yes, and you still let me clean offices. Yes, she sat back down slowly, then laughed, a short, breathless laugh. I deserved that, she said. I smiled gently. You deserved growth. The public reveal came a week later, not from me. From her, Angela organized a meeting. Tenants, neighbors, community members. She stood at the front of the room, hands steady, voice clear. My name is Angela Brooks, she said. I made mistakes, big ones, murmurs. But I learned something important, silence. No one is entitled to comfort. No one is entitled to rescue, but everyone deserves dignity. People leaned in. I'm here not as an owner, she continued, but as someone who knows what it feels like to lose everything. That's when I knew. She was ready. The foundation started quietly. No press, no banners, just work, helping women displaced by financial abuse, offering legal guidance, temporary housing at the beach house, support without shame. One night, as we locked up together, Angela said, You never humiliated me. I looked at her. You let me see myself. Edward wrote once more, from prison. Angela didn't open the letter. She handed it to me. I don't need closure from someone who never gave me truth. I burned it, quietly, completely. Months passed, life settled. One evening we sat on the porch, tea cooling between us, the sky soft and orange. Do you regret it? She asked suddenly. What? Letting me fall? I thought for a moment. No, she nodded. Me neither. The neighbors stopped whispering. Then they started asking questions, then asking for advice, then asking for help. Angela listened, helped, led. One afternoon, Aurora hugged me. You raised her twice, she said. I smiled. No, I replied. I raised her once. Life finished the job. The beach house filled with laughter again. Different laughter, stronger laughter. Women healing, children playing. Angela stood barefoot on the porch Robert built, watching, protecting. One night she said something I'll never forget. Mom, I finally understand what real wealth is. What? Having nothing left to hide. And that's when I knew. The story wasn't about money or betrayal or revenge. It was about truth. I stopped pretending to be small. She stopped pretending to be entitled. And together we became something better than we were before. Not perfect, but real. The first sign that things were changing came quietly, too quietly. Angela started getting calls she didn't expect, not from banks, not from creditors, from people who suddenly remembered her. One afternoon, she came into the kitchen holding her phone like it might bite her. Mom, she said carefully, do you remember Aunt Marlene? I looked up from my tea. The one who said you married above your station and stopped calling? Angela nodded. She just invited me to lunch. I smiled faintly. Of course she did. Power has a smell. You don't notice it when you're born into it. But when you grow into it, everyone around you suddenly smells it too. Angela hesitated. She asked about the foundation. I raised an eyebrow. What did you tell her? Nothing. Good answer. A week later, it was an old college friend. Then a former coworker, then Edward's cousin. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Small talk, concern, curiosity, then the pivot. So I heard your mom's doing really well. Angela came home irritated. They don't ask how I am. They ask what we have. I nodded. Now you see it. The foundation officially opened its second phase. More beds, legal volunteers, counselors, quiet growth, purposeful growth, and with growth comes resistance. A local councilman requested a meeting. Just informational, his assistant said. We knew better. Angela insisted on going alone. I need to do this myself. I watched her prepare, not with fear, with pride. She wore a simple navy blazer. No jewelry, no flash, just presence. When she came back, she was silent for a long time. Finally, she said he wanted a photo. I didn't respond. He said it would look good if the foundation partnered with his office. I waited, and then she exhaled. I said no, I smiled. He didn't like that, she continued. He said we'd lose funding opportunities. And you said, that integrity isn't for sale. She met my eyes. I learned that from you. Not everyone was so subtle. A letter arrived, anonymous, typed, no return address. People like you should remember where they came from. Angela's hands shook slightly. I folded the letter. Power always angers those who expected access. That night, she asked something important. Mom, were you ever scared? I thought about it. Every day, I said honestly. Then how did you do it? I reached for her hand. By deciding fear doesn't get to drive. The foundation faced its first real crisis 2 weeks later. A woman named Carla arrived with 3 children. No documents, no proof, just bruises. The system hesitated. Angela didn't. She stays, she said simply. Rules bent, lives changed. Carla cried when she realized she was safe. Not loudly, she collapsed, the kind of crying that empties a soul. Angela stayed with her all night. The next morning, Angela looked exhausted, but grounded. I didn't sleep, she said. I know, but I've never felt more sure of anything. Then came the audit. Of course it did. Paperwork, questions, inspections. Angela handled it calmly, truthfully, openly. They found nothing because there was nothing to hide. Edward tried again. Through a lawyer requesting reconciliation discussions. Angela laughed, a real laugh. Tell him my life moved on. The building's residents started noticing changes. Faster repairs, clear communication, respect. One tenant said something Angela never forgot. You listen, that's power, not control, trust. One evening, as we walked past the garden Robert planted years ago, Angela stopped. Mom, if you hadn't let me fall, I shook my head. You climbed, she nodded, and now I can help others climb too. But the world wasn't done testing her. Not yet. A journalist requested an interview, this time not gossip, a real story. Angela declined at first. Then reconsidered. Not for me, she said, for the women who don't get heard. She sat in front of the camera, calm, honest, no victim story, no villain story, just truth. The article changed everything. Donations increased. So did scrutiny. Angela stood steady. One night she sat beside me quietly. You know what scares me now? What? That I won't live up to this. I smiled. You already are. Fame is loud, legacy is quiet. Angela learned that difference the hard way. After the article ran, everything accelerated. Emails doubled, calls tripled, requests flooded in, some genuine, some not. One morning, Angela stood in the kitchen scrolling through her phone, jaw tight. What is it? I asked. They want me on a panel. That sounds reasonable. She shook her head. They want me as the redemption story. I didn't respond right away. They want pain packaged, she continued. Not truth, I nodded. Then you already know the answer, she exhaled. I said no, but refusing attention doesn't stop it. It just changes its tone. A donor withdrew funding. No explanation, just a polite email. Angela stared at it longer than she should have. Did I make a mistake? She asked quietly. I set my mug down. Tell me why you started this, she answered immediately. To help women who have nowhere else to go. Then nothing changed. The foundation hit its hardest month soon after. 3 women arrived in 1 week, all with children, all desperate, resources stretched thin. Angela didn't sleep, not from fear, from responsibility. One night, I found her at the table at 2 a.m., surrounded by files. You don't have to do this alone, I said gently. She looked up. I know, then she paused, but I want to. The board meeting that month was tense. Numbers, budgets, limitations. Someone suggested selective intake. Angela closed her folder. No, silence. We don't get to decide who deserves safety. More silence. Then agreement. Leadership isn't loud, it's steady. Edward tried one last move. A legal threat. Baseless, desperate. Angela read it once, then shredded it. I'm not fighting ghosts anymore. The building community changed too. Residents organized, volunteered, protected the space. A woman named Leela knocked one afternoon with a tray of food. For the shelter, she said simply. Angela cried after she left. That night she said something that mattered. I used to think money meant control. I waited. Now I know it means responsibility. The invitation came unexpectedly. A national nonprofit wanted partnership. Resources, visibility, scale. Angela hesitated. Are we ready? I answered honestly. You are, she negotiated calmly, set boundaries, protected autonomy, signed nothing impulsively. When the call ended, she leaned back. I didn't feel small. I smiled. That's growth. Months passed, not without stress, but with purpose. One evening, we returned to the beach house. The shelter was full, laughter in the kitchen. Children running barefoot. Angela stood on the porch as the sun set. This used to be my escape, she said. Now it's my responsibility. I nodded. That's the difference between comfort and meaning. She turned to me. Mom, do you regret hiding the truth from me? I thought carefully. No, she nodded. I don't either. The final test came quietly. No warning, no drama. A woman arrived late one night. Alone, older, no bruises. Just exhaustion, she said one sentence. My children stopped calling. Angela froze. I knew that look. It was the mirror. Angela sat with her until dawn, listened, didn't interrupt, didn't fix, just stayed. The next morning, Angela looked at me. I know why you did it now. I waited. You didn't punish me, she said softly. You trusted me enough to let me grow. That afternoon, Angela wrote a letter, not to Edward, not to the press. To herself, she read it to me later. I am not who I was when I left. I am not who I was when I returned. I am who I chose to become. The foundation plaque went up quietly. No ceremony, just names: Robert Brooks, Antonia Brooks. Angela Brooks, a legacy not built on money, but on lessons. That night, Angela poured us tea, sat across from me. You know what I'm proud of most? What? That I didn't inherit this. I smiled. You earned it. Outside, the ocean moved steadily, unimpressed, constant, like real strength. We sat in silence, not awkward, not heavy, complete. And that's when I understood something too. Letting go isn't losing control. It's trusting what you taught. There's a moment every parent waits for, even if they don't know it yet. It's not when your child graduates, not when they get married, not when they succeed. It's the moment you realize they don't need you to hold them anymore. They're standing and they're watching you now. That moment came for me on a Tuesday night. Ordinary, quiet, no warning. I had just finished washing the dishes when I felt it. A tightness in my chest, not sharp, not painful, just wrong. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table. Angela was in the other room typing. Mom, she called out, you okay? I'm fine, I lied, old habit, but the room tilted slightly, not enough to panic, enough to notice. Angela appeared in the doorway. She took one look at my face and knew. That instinct, the one I'd carried for her all her life, had finally transferred. You're not fine, she said firmly. I just need a minute. She crossed the room anyway. Put her hand on my wrist, checked my pulse, slow, steady, but her jaw tightened. You're sitting down, she said, calm but sharp. I'm calling Dr. Reynolds. No need, I protested. She didn't argue. She dialed. That's when it hit me. She wasn't asking anymore. She wasn't deferring. She was acting. At the clinic, she filled out forms, spoke to nurses, answered questions. When they asked about medications, she knew. When they asked about history, she didn't hesitate. She sat beside me the entire time. Quiet, present, unmovable. The doctor said it was exhaustion, stress, a warning, not a crisis, but Angela didn't relax, not fully. At home that night, she made soup, real soup, not rushed. Not distracted, she watched me eat the way I once watched her when she was sick as a child. Every spoonful counted. You're slowing down, she said gently. I'm allowed to, I replied. She shook her head. No, you're human. That's different. Later that night, she knocked on my door, soft, respectful. Can I come in? I smiled. Yes. She sat on the edge of my bed, the same way I used to sit on the edge of hers. Mom, you don't have to be strong all the time anymore. Something loosened in my chest. I know, I said, but habits die hard. She nodded. I noticed. There was a pause, then she said something I never expected. I was so busy proving I could survive without you, she swallowed. I never thought about whether you needed me. I reached for her hand. I didn't want you to need me forever. I know, she whispered. But I want you to know you can. That night, I slept deeper than I had in years, because for the first time, I wasn't the only one guarding the door. The next test came sooner than expected. The foundation received a call. A woman had been turned away from 3 shelters. Too full, too complicated, too many needs. She was sleeping in her car with her mother, 81 years old, diabetic, confused. Angela didn't hesitate. She's coming here, the coordinator hesitated, but we're at capacity. Angela nodded, then we make space. When the woman arrived, she looked smaller than her years, hands shaking, eyes darting. Her mother clutched a worn purse like it held her last breath. Angela knelt down in front of them, not rushed, not clinical, just human. You're safe now, she said. The woman collapsed into tears. Her mother followed. Angela held both of them, didn't rush, didn't explain, just stayed. That night, Angela came home exhausted, but glowing. They reminded me of us, she said quietly. I nodded. I know. The next morning, I woke up late. Angela had already left for work, but there was a note on the counter. I moved your doctor appointment to Thursday so you can rest today. Soup's in the fridge. Call me if you feel even a little off. Love you. I sat down. And for the first time, I cried, not from pain, from release. The world kept testing her, as it always does when someone grows into their power. A funding dispute, a zoning issue, a volunteer who crossed a line. Angela handled each one calmly, firmly, without ego. One afternoon, a board member questioned her authority. Do you really think you're qualified to make this call? Angela didn't raise her voice, didn't defend her past. She simply said, I'm qualified because I listen. Silence followed, then agreement. That evening she came home thoughtful. Mom, do you ever wish you had done things differently? I considered the question. No, I said. But I wish I had trusted myself sooner, she smiled. Me too. Another night she surprised me. She brought out documents, legal ones, wills, medical directives, prepared, thoughtful, respectful. I'm not rushing you, she said quickly. I don't want to guess someday. I felt a lump in my throat. You're very prepared, I said. She nodded. You taught me that. Then she said the words that closed a circle I didn't know was open. I won't make decisions for you. I'll protect your wishes. That's when I knew she wasn't just my daughter anymore. She was my equal. The final moment of Part 5A came quietly, as most real transformations do. We were sitting on the porch, evening breeze. Tea cooling, birds settling. Angela looked at me and said, Mom, I don't need your money. I waited. I needed your lesson. And in that moment, I understood Robert's plan completely. The call came on a Thursday, mid-morning, the kind of time when trouble doesn't usually announce itself. Angela answered in the hallway, phone pressed to her ear, her face tightening with every second. She didn't speak much, just listened. When she hung up, she stood still for a moment. Then she said one sentence that told me everything. They're coming. Who? I asked. The city, she replied. Inspection, compliance, complaints. I exhaled slowly. This wasn't unexpected. Power attracts tests, legacy attracts scrutiny. They're saying the foundation is out of scope, she continued. Too much expansion, too fast. I nodded. And what do they want? She looked at me. A meeting. Today, the meeting was set for 3 p.m. Angela spent the next few hours reviewing documents, policies, timelines, not frantic, focused, prepared. At one point, she stopped and looked at me. Mom, they might come after you. I tilted my head. How? They'll say you're influencing decisions, that this is a family operation. I smiled faintly. And I won't let them. At City Hall, the room was cold, metal chairs. Long table, 3 officials, 2 lawyers. Angela sat straight. I sat quietly beside her. The lead inspector spoke first. Miss Brooks, we've received concerns about governance. Angela nodded. Happy to address them. They slid papers across the table, numbers, charts, allegations. Then one of them said it. The issue is that this operation appears personal. I felt Angela shift beside me. This is a public service organization, the man continued, but your mother's involvement raises questions. Angela didn't raise her voice, didn't look at me, she looked at him. My mother is a private citizen, she said calmly. She has no operational authority. The man leaned back, yet she funds it. Angela inhaled. Yes, she said, and that doesn't disqualify integrity. They pressed harder, subtle, sharp, implied influence, implied favoritism. Finally, the lead inspector looked at me directly. Mrs. Brooks, would you like to respond? Angela's hand moved instantly, firm, protective. No, she said, she would not. The room went quiet. My mother taught me responsibility, Angela continued, but she does not make decisions here. She leaned forward. I do. Silence. Then the inspector nodded slowly. Understood. The meeting ended without resolution. But without threats, that was a win. Outside, Angela exhaled. Her shoulders dropped, then she laughed softly. I was scared, she admitted. I smiled. You didn't show it. She looked at me. That's because I wasn't protecting myself. The story didn't stay contained. It never does. A blogger picked it up, a half-true version, painted me as a puppet master, painted Angela as naive. The comments were brutal. Angela read them. Then closed the laptop. I'm done letting strangers define us. 2 days later, she did something unexpected. She requested a public forum. Open, recorded, transparent. I watched from the back of the room. She stood at the podium, calm. Clear, this foundation exists because women fall through cracks, she said. We don't ask for permission to be human. Murmurs. My mother is not my shield, she continued. She is my example. Silence. And I will not step aside to make anyone comfortable. Applause followed. Real, earned. Afterwards, someone approached me. You must be proud. I smiled. I am. That night, Angela and I sat at the kitchen table. No tea, no files. Just quiet. Mom, I need to ask you something. Go ahead. If this ever becomes too much, will you tell me? I nodded. I promise. She nodded back. And I promise I won't decide for you. The crisis passed. The audit closed. The foundation stood, stronger, cleaner, respected, but something else changed too, our dynamic. I noticed it in small ways. She asked before moving appointments. She checked in before decisions, not from fear, from respect. One evening, she said something that stopped me cold. I don't feel like your child anymore. I waited. I feel like your partner. I smiled. That's what adulthood feels like. The final test of Part 5 billion came quietly. As they always do, a donor offered a massive contribution. 7 figures with conditions, visibility, influence, input. Angela read the proposal, slowly, carefully, then closed it. No, the board panicked. But think of what we could do. Angela nodded. I did. Silence. Then I chose integrity. She came home late that night, sat beside me. I hope I didn't mess this up. I took her hand. You protected the mission, she exhaled. I learned that from you. That's when I realized something. I had spent my life protecting her from the world, and now she was protecting the world from shortcuts. There's a strange thing that happens after a storm passes. Not immediately, not when the rain stops, but later, when the air feels different, when the silence doesn't feel empty anymore, it feels earned. That's where we were, Angela and me. Not fixing, not fighting, not proving, just living. The foundation settled into a rhythm, no emergencies, no crises, just work steady. Honest, Angela still worked long hours, but she came home lighter. Not carrying the weight of fear anymore, just responsibility, the good kind. One night we sat on the couch watching an old movie. Nothing important, something we'd seen 100 times. Halfway through, Angela muted it. Mom, can I ask you something personal? I turned toward her. Always, she hesitated, then asked the question I knew would come someday. When did you stop seeing me as a little girl? I didn't answer right away. Because the truth mattered. I stopped protecting you from consequences, I said slowly. The day I realized protecting you was hurting you, she nodded. And when did you start seeing me as capable? I smiled softly. The moment you stopped asking to be saved. She leaned back, absorbing that. I thought adulthood was about independence, she said. I shook my head. It's about accountability. The next day, something unexpected happened. Angela got sick. Not serious, but enough fever, weakness, drained. This time the roles reversed completely. I hovered. She laughed weakly. You don't have to do that. I smiled. I know, but I did it anyway, because love doesn't disappear when roles change. It adapts. She slept most of the day. That night she woke up disoriented, called my name. I came immediately, sat beside her, held her hand, no speeches, no lessons, just presence. In the quiet hours of the night, she whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I answered honestly, "I never did." The following week, we took a break, just us, the beach house, no meetings, no phones, no plans. We cooked together. Walked barefoot, sat on the porch, listened to the waves. One morning, Angela stood in the kitchen and laughed. I used to think this place was just property. I smiled. It was never just that. One afternoon, she found an old photograph. Her at 10, me and Robert behind her, sunburned, laughing. She held it quietly. I forgot this version of us, she said. I touched her shoulder. You didn't forget. You just got distracted. That night, she asked something unexpected. Mom, were you ever afraid I'd never come back? I took a breath. Yes, she nodded. I was afraid too. The next morning, we talked about the future, not finances, not plans, but time. I don't want to wait anymore, Angela said. For what? For life, she smiled. I want to enjoy it while it's happening. When we returned home, something had shifted again, not dramatically, just softer. Angela started delegating more, trusting others, letting go. One evening, she surprised me. She handed me a small box. What's this? Open it. Inside was a simple necklace, nothing expensive, just meaningful. I saw it and thought of you, she said, not because of money, because of steadiness. I put it on, it fit perfectly. Then she said the words that closed the last open door in my heart. I don't need to make you proud anymore. I waited. I know I already am. That's when I realized something important. The lesson was complete. The foundation no longer needed defending. Angela no longer needed proving. And I no longer needed guarding. One last conversation brought it all together. We were sitting at the table, tea, sunlight. Angela said quietly, "Mom, if something ever happens to you," I stopped her gently. "Not today," she smiled. "Okay, then just know this." She took my hand. "You gave me the hardest gift anyone ever gave me." "What's that?" "Truth." That night, I slept without listening for sounds, without waiting for calls, without rehearsing conversations. I slept like someone who had finished a chapter properly, and in the morning, I woke up knowing something for sure. The ending was coming, but it wasn't sad, it was earned. There's a moment in life when nothing feels urgent anymore, not because everything is perfect, but because the panic is gone, the noise fades, and you realize you're no longer running towards something. You're standing inside it. That's where I was. 71 years old, sitting at the kitchen table early one morning, sunlight spilling through the window, Angela still asleep down the hall, and for the first time in decades, I wasn't bracing myself for the next problem. I used to believe peace came from control, from planning, from staying 10 steps ahead, but peace doesn't come from managing life, it comes from trusting what you built. Angela had built something real, not just the foundation. Not just the shelter, but herself. And now the world was responding to that. The letters came first, handwritten, careful, from women who had stayed at the beach house, from mothers who had slept safely for the first time in years, from children who finally felt normal again. Angela read every single one. She never rushed them, never skimmed. Sometimes she cried, sometimes she just sat quietly afterward. One letter changed her. She didn't say it out loud. But I saw it. It was from a woman named Ruth, 74 years old, widowed, children grown and distant. She wrote, "I thought my life was already over. You didn't save me. You reminded me I was still here." Angela folded the letter slowly, held it to her chest, then went outside and stood barefoot in the grass. That afternoon, she said something I hadn't heard before. "Mom, I don't want this to grow bigger." I looked at her. "You don't know," she said calmly. "I want it to grow deeper." That's when I knew she wasn't chasing success. She was protecting meaning. The invitation arrived 2 weeks later. A national conference, big stage, spotlight, a chance to tell her story. Angela read the email, closed her laptop, then reopened it. Read it again. She didn't smile, didn't frown, just thought. That night she asked me, "Why did you and Dad never tell anyone what you had?" I smiled faintly. "Because money changes the way people listen," she nodded. "And attention does the same thing." She declined the invitation, politely. Gratefully, firmly, people didn't understand. Some were offended, some confused, some annoyed, but Angela slept peacefully that night, and that told me everything. Time passed differently after that, slower, richer. We developed small rituals. Morning tea, evening walks, weekly dinners with the shelter residents. One evening, a young volunteer asked me, "Do you ever regret not telling people who you really are?" I thought about it, then answered honestly, "No." She looked surprised. "Why not?" "Because the people who matter learned it by watching." Angela overheard that. She smiled. The doctor visit came quietly, routine, necessary, nothing dramatic, but time has a way of making itself known. Angela sat beside me in the waiting room, holding a clipboard, her leg bouncing slightly. I noticed. "You're nervous," I said. She exhaled. "I know." The doctor was kind, direct, realistic, no alarms, but no illusions either. When we got back to the car, Angela didn't start it right away. She stared straight ahead, then said, "I'm not ready." I didn't ask for what. "I know," I said softly. That night, she cooked dinner, burned the vegetables, oversalted the soup. We laughed a lot. Later, she admitted, "I thought I was prepared for anything." I shook my head gently. "No one ever is." That weekend, we went to the beach house, just us, no schedule, no purpose. We sat on the porch Robert built. Same boards, same view, different lives. Angela leaned back and said, "Dad would have liked this version of me." I nodded. "He planned for it." She turned to me. "You really believe that?" "Yes," I said. "He knew you'd need to learn the hard way." She smiled sadly. He was right. That night the ocean was loud, relentless, comforting. Angela asked a question she'd never asked before. "Mom, are you afraid to die?" I took a long breath. "No," I said honestly. "I'm afraid of leaving things unsaid." She nodded slowly. "Then don't." The next morning I started writing letters, not legal ones, not instructions, but memories, truths. Small things Angela might never think to ask. I didn't tell her. Not yet. Angela felt it anyway. She always had. One afternoon, she found me writing. She didn't interrupt, just sat nearby, present. Finally, she said, "You don't have to prepare me." I looked up. "I'm not." She met my eyes. "You're honoring yourself." I smiled. That too. The foundation continued quietly. No drama, no headlines, just impact. Angela trained new leaders, stepped back slightly, not from fear, from trust. One evening, a board member asked her, "Aren't you worried about losing control?" Angela smiled. "No," she said. "I'm worried about holding it too tightly." That's when I realized something else. She wasn't just becoming a leader, she was becoming a steward. The final quiet test of Part 6A came unexpectedly, not from the world, from me. One morning I misplaced my glasses, a small thing, but it shook me, not because I needed them, because I forgot where I'd put them. Angela noticed, didn't react, didn't correct, just helped me look together. When we found them, she smiled. "No big deal." I smiled back, but inside I understood. Time doesn't announce itself loudly, it whispers. That night I wrote one final letter, not to Angela, to myself. I wrote, "You did enough. You don't need to control the ending. You already taught the lesson." And for the first time since Robert died, I felt completely ready, not to leave, but to let life move forward without gripping it so tightly. Angela came into the room quietly, sat beside me, didn't ask questions, didn't fill the silence, just stayed. That's when I knew the ending wouldn't be dramatic, it would be honest. Some truths don't arrive gently. They knock, loud, unavoidable, and right when you think you're finally at peace. The knock came on a Thursday morning, not at the door, on Angela's phone. She was standing at the kitchen counter, scrolling quietly, coffee cooling beside her. Then she froze, didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. I didn't ask, I waited. "Mom," she said slowly, "they know." I looked up. "Who's they?" She swallowed. "Everyone." The story had leaked. Not from us, never from us. A former board member, a careless comment, a reporter who connected dots that were never meant to be connected. The article went live that afternoon. Headline bold. Language dramatic, facts mostly correct, tone hungry. It wasn't cruel, but it wasn't gentle either. It painted Angela as a miracle, a comeback story, a fallen daughter redeemed by tragedy and wealth. What it didn't capture was restraint, silence, choice. Angela read the article twice, then closed her laptop. She didn't cry, didn't smile, didn't celebrate. "They're calling me inspiring," she said quietly. I nodded. And it feels wrong." The phone didn't stop. Invitations, interviews, requests, offers. Angela didn't answer any of them. She went outside, sat on the steps, barefoot, grounded. That night she asked me, "Did I fail by staying quiet all this time?" I shook my head. "No, you succeeded without needing applause. But the world doesn't like silence, it fills it for you." The next article was sharper, speculative. More personal, it mentioned me, my age, my finances, Robert, our history. Angela read it, then stood up. "Decision made. I need to say something," she said. I studied her face. Not fear, not anger, clarity. Only once, she added. And only the truth, the community center filled quickly. No cameras allowed, no live stream, no edits, just people listening. Angela stood at the podium, hands steady, voice calm. She didn't start with money or betrayal or headlines. She started with this: I thought losing everything would destroy me, but it didn't. It taught me who I was when no one was watching. She told them about the night job, the fear, the shame, the learning. Then she said something that made the room go still. My mother didn't rescue me when I fell. She stayed, and that saved me. She looked at me just for a second. I learned that dignity isn't given. It's practiced. When she finished, there was no applause, not because people didn't want to, but because no one wanted to break the moment. Afterward, a woman approached me, tears in her eyes. You raised her right, she said. I smiled gently. She raised herself. I just stopped interfering. That night, Angela slept deeply. The kind of sleep that comes after truth. I didn't, not because I was worried, but because I was complete. I opened the drawer, the letters. The final one, I added a line: if this is the last quiet night, it's enough. The next morning, the house filled with sunlight. Angela made breakfast, hummed softly. Mom, she said suddenly, promise me something. I looked at her. Don't disappear quietly, she said. Stay present. I smiled. I planned to, but life, as always, had its own timing. The call came that evening. Hospital, routine turned serious. Urgent but calm. Angela didn't panic. She didn't collapse. She took my hand, firm, grounded. I'm here, she said, and she was. In the hospital room, machines hummed. Lights dimmed, time slowed. I wasn't afraid, I wasn't sad, I was aware. Angela sat beside me, not crying. Not speaking, just there. I know, she whispered. I know now. I squeezed her hand. That was enough. The hospital room was quiet in a way that felt respectful. Not empty, not cold, just still. The machines spoke softly, as if they understood they were guests in something important. Angela sat beside me, her hand wrapped around mine. She didn't look scared, she didn't look lost, she looked ready. The doctor spoke in calm, practiced sentences: stability, observation, time. Angela nodded, asked clear questions, took notes. I watched her. Not as a patient watching her daughter, but as a woman watching another woman who had finally grown into herself. Later that night, when visiting hours ended, Angela stayed. No one questioned it, they could tell. Mom, she said quietly, do you want me to read to you? I smiled. Only if you want to. She pulled a chair closer, found the notebook, the one with the worn edges. She read aloud, not rushing, not dramatizing, just letting the words exist. When she reached the last page, her voice broke, not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to remind us she was human. She closed the notebook and placed it carefully back in the drawer. I used to think legacy was money, she whispered. Now I know its presence. I slept that night deeply, the kind of sleep where dreams don't ask questions. When I woke, sunlight filled the room. Angela was there, same chair, same grip. Good morning, she said softly. I nodded. Later that day, I asked her to open my bag. Inside was a folder, neatly labeled. She already knew what it was. I don't want you to rush, I told her. There's no emergency. No ticking clock, she nodded. I know, but when the time comes, I continued, don't be afraid to choose peace over performance. She smiled. I already have. Weeks passed. Recovery was slow but steady. People reached out, offers. Requests, praise. Angela declined most of them, not out of fear, out of clarity. She chose small rooms, quiet conversations, real work. The foundation grew, not fast, not flashy, but strong. Women arrived carrying nothing but fear. They left carrying dignity. Angela didn't tell them my story. She didn't need to, she just listened. One afternoon, months later, we sat on the porch. The air was warm, the garden quiet. She brought me tea, set it down carefully. Sat beside me. You know, she said, I used to think strength meant never needing help. I smiled. And now I know it means knowing who to stand beside. We didn't talk much after that. We didn't need to. The house held us. The walls knew. Later that evening, Angela asked, are you afraid? I thought about it, honestly. No, I said, I'm complete. She leaned her head against my shoulder, not like a child, like an equal. When the time finally came, it wasn't dramatic. No alarms, no chaos, just quiet, just breath, just presence. Angela held my hand, firm, steady. I'm here, she whispered again, and that was enough. Weeks later, the house was quiet. But not empty. Angela kept the chair by the window, the notebook on the shelf, the kettle warm. She didn't rush grief, she let it move through her. One morning, she opened the notebook, read the first page, then added a line at the end. She didn't save me with money, she saved me with patience, and I will live worthy of that gift. The foundation's doors opened that day. No ribbon, no speeches, just action. Angela didn't call herself a success story. She called herself available. And somewhere in the quiet spaces between work and rest, between grief and gratitude, a truth remained. Money can build comfort, but character builds homes. And love doesn't rescue. Love teaches you how to stand. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you of someone or maybe of yourself, tell us in the comments. What part of this story felt real to you? And if you want more stories like this, quiet, honest human stories, subscribe to my channel. We'll meet again in the next story with love and respect.